Welcome to this week's review. Not a lot to discuss really, but it was a great week from a return perspective. Two positions taken, two winners. Technically, one position taken, just because the one was taken on the Friday in the previous week that I was holding. That was the USD JPY position, and then took an additional USD JPY long. Um, Most of this profit was from the original position taken on Friday. Um, if you haven't watched last week's review, check that out because I do break down the trade in that review. That was about 9.3 R, and I captured about 7 R of that because of closing 50% at about 3 R and then letting the rest run to full TP. So yeah, that was an excellent trade. That trade alone pretty much brought me back up to break even on my phase 2 account. I was in a 3% drawdown, and then took an additional USD JPY long position, which closed with partial profit. So those are the two positions taken. If you want to see a breakdown of the second USD JPY position, check out my analysis on TradingView. Link to that is in the description below. And so when just looking at how many met the plan, both met the plan, no invalid trades, so we can count this as the first week towards my trade building protocol. And so I have 3 weeks left after this because obviously we had a reset at the end of last week, given that there was an invalid trade there. And then of the two trades taken this week, one was high risk, one was low risk. Funny though, because the high risk position, which I technically won't be allowed to take in the next phase of this protocol, was the 9.3 R position. And so I've got to be mindful of refining my definition of high risk, low risk, because that's something I have intended to do over this 4 weeks. Well, now 5 weeks. But now when looking at trades like this, where in hindsight it was a great position, it was 50-50 in a sense between low risk and high risk because it was a deeper retracement. That's one of the criteria I look at when I determine sort of the risk rating of it, is how deeply it retraced. It retraced to about 70.5%, which is that optimal trade entry sort of area within the optimal trade entry sort of range. And then the second thing I look at is volume within the protraction. And my current definition of high risk is that we typically have lower volume and we're not displacing counter to my bias. And in this case, we did displace quite aggressively. We were forming one-sided fair value gaps as we came lower, but took the trade regardless. And yeah, it worked out quite nicely, but it's still a high risk. And I think when I do go into trying to refine my definition of high risk, low risk, I need to be mindful that I don't also become too loose in my definitions to allow for more trades, and then expose myself to more risk unnecessarily. And so that's something I should probably add to one of the things I learned this week, but I kind of mentioned it in this review, so it's it's discussed in any case. But something else I did learn is that I'm pretty uncomfortable with giving away too much profit on a trade. And I think that is one thing I learned with this 9R position, was that when I was floating at about 8.5, 9R before full TP, I honestly asked myself, am I okay if this thing had to pull back and stop me out at break even? And I, I couldn't accept that. To give 3% away, tech, just less than, just didn't sit well with me. And yeah, in that moment, I decided to apply a trailing stop, very conservatively. But that kind of showed me that at some point, because I hadn't experienced, I think, a trade of such high sort of R multiple. At some point, you got to draw a line in the sand, and it doesn't make sense to walk away with change when you've got yeah, your floating equity is significantly higher than yeah, what your balance is. To give away 3% out of principle is, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It means that there's something wrong there. So yeah, that was something that I learned, and that concluded what was a really profitable week. And just coming to my Alpha Capital account now, you can see this account, it's a phase 2 account, and yeah, started 21st October. Current equity balance is just over 100,000. So we are in profit on the account due to, yeah, those two positions taken. And yeah, that is a wrap for this week's review. Remember, guys, consistency is the choice you make when you start doing the things you know you should be doing day in and day out.